Hey everybody, how are you out there? Welcome to another episode of Car Wash Magazine Live. Per usual, I'm your host, Matt DeWolf. Just hanging in here with you guys today to see what's going on. How's everybody doing? Hope you're having a great week. Hope everything is looking up for you as you head into this weekend. I know that for me, this has been a big week for a couple of reasons. One is we just wrapped up Car Wash Magazine's latest print edition, and guess what? That marks the 10th anniversary edition, which is a little weird, right? I mean, 10 years of the thing. That's kind of mind-blowing for me. So you'll be getting that in your mailboxes here soon. You're guaranteed to get it if you're a member of ICA. That's carwash.org/join. Otherwise, you're rolling the dice. You might get it, you might not. I don't know. It depends on if I want to send it to you or not. So make sure you get all the issues of that. But it is a big issue. It's always a labor of love. We love putting the thing together. It's why this program exists. So, look, we're going to have a fantastic program today, like always. We're going to be talking about talent, which we've been talking a ton about, and that's not going to go away anytime soon. But we're going to talk to Megan Ragsdale from Soapy Joe's about how we can make our workplace a really attractive place to a talent pool that you might be overlooking. So stay tuned for that. We're going to get into that. But guess what, guys? Big news this week. It's showtime! Yes! The Car Wash Show, November 15 through 17. Registration is open. So get yourself registered, bring all your friends. I'm going to see you guys there. I'm really excited about it because I'm going to get to do something at the show this year that I've been talking about doing for probably close to a decade now. So super excited to share that with you guys. We've got big programming planned, a whole lot of fun stuff as we get to the chance to get together again in person, en masse, in Las Vegas, November 15 through 17. Look, here's what else is going on. We've got a little bit of I've been seeing on all my social media feeds, a lot of back to school stuff. ICA this week did announce some scholarships. One of the first ones I wanted to highlight here was for Faith Betancourt. Faith is from Oh So Clean Car Wash. And Faith will be attending San Diego State University after graduating high school with honors. And this is from her application. I want to read this to you because it's just going to make you happy. The job of working at a car wash is more than just a paycheck. Knowing I'm in a business that makes people feel good about their cars, therefore themselves, gives me the satisfaction of being able to make people happy day after day. So super awesome. That's why people do this and why people love that. So excited for Faith. Faith, congratulations. Thanks for being part of the Car Wash community, and good luck on your journey and your adventures at San Diego State University. We'll share some more information about some of the other scholarships winners we have for you. There's 5 others. We'll get into that in a couple of weeks here in the next few programs. Guess what else is going on? Faith is going to go back to school, but there's a whole host of folks back to school right now. Let's show them. They're at Indiana right now. Here they are. Here's the photo of the latest class of the Executive Management Institute. This is a great group, great opportunity. I talked about it a lot on the program for you all. And if you didn't apply, you're missing out because this thing is life-changing. Life-changing, friends. So I really want to make sure that you appreciate that and see these people because guess what? These are going to be the people who are leading this industry for years to come. They've had a chance to connect with one another, create some community, and have this cohort experience that is unlike anything else. This is the second time we've done it at the International Car Wash Association. I expect to continue to see that going forward. So next time that comes around, make sure you get applied. Or if you're not the one that's going to go, make sure you send your up-and-coming people to that to make sure that they can further their involvement in this industry. This week we're going to be talking a lot about talent with Megan Ragsdale, who's a fantastic female in this industry. Last week, we had an exclusive interview with Katie Pierce from Sonny's, who is another amazing female in this industry. And maybe you missed it. Maybe you had some things to do. I just want to make sure that you guys catch this little snippet from Katie Pierce and Eric Wolf's conversation from last week's episode.
A little bit more on you, obviously, as a female, and now with your position as Sonny's Holdings, I mean, you have to be one of the most high-profile females in the car wash industry. I mean, even worldwide. So can you talk a little bit about what that's been like in your career as you've taken these steps? And then what advice might you have for other women who are relatively new to the industry?
Absolutely. And that's something that, I'm very passionate about. When I first got into this, I was almost always, and a lot of times I still am, the only girl in the room. I'm very fortunate here at Sonny's that we've brought into our management and executive team a lot of other females. And I see more and more every time we go to industry events. And I'm super excited about that, because I think this is a wonderful industry and has a lot of opportunity for smart people, and especially smart women. So I love seeing more and more of them coming in. But it wasn't always the case. What I would say to women coming in is, don't discount it because it's car wash, right? It's, some people would think this is not exciting, or maybe it's not very sexy, or not cool, but there's really so much opportunity. And the main thing that I would say to them is, from my perspective, the sky's the limit. I never would have thought that this is where I would have ended up in this industry when I started, but I have, and so can anyone else. You can do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It's just, how hard do you want to work, and are you passionate about it?
That is sage advice, friends, from Katie Pierce over at Sonny's. If you want to catch that full episode, you can do that at carwashmagazine.com. We've got 70 plus episodes for you to check out and review at your leisure, if you will. One other thing I wanted to share with you all this week before we get into the meat of this program is our podcast that you might or might not be subscribed to. It's Car Wash the Podcast. We have that episodes coming out about bi-weekly here, or every other week. And the most recent episode we released was all around social influencing. And if you watched the program, you might have seen it on this show a couple weeks ago, but I want to make sure you catch this little nugget from Beth Martin at Express Wash Concepts.
And before you build that and you target these influencers, you really need to take the time to understand their demographic, right? And then take the time to get to know them, work on content development together, because you just don't want to turn somebody loose and have them, come up with their own content, right? And then run the risk of, something that you wouldn't want as far as a campaign to go. So I think that's super important, is all the work that goes on in the front end before the campaign even goes live.
One of my favorite things to talk about, and you may pick this up if you've listened to this show before or watched this show before, I love to talk about people and the power of people and the way that your business can really be impacted by the way you treat and develop and attract your people. So we're going to get into that today. I've been having a lot of conversations with folks recently around just the hiring market and how in the heck can you stand out in this market, and what are you supposed to do when the talent pool is maybe a little shallower than you'd like. And guess what? There is a sneaky obvious talent pool sitting out there that we're probably overlooking, and we're going to get into how you can make your business attractive to that population here in a little bit. Joining me today is going to be Megan Ragsdale. Megan is the Chief Operating Officer with Soapy Joe's, one of our favorite washes, as you may come to know. Megan's background is super fascinating, guys and gals. It really focuses on customer experience and customer kind of retail experience creation. But there's also a very important component of that is all around the employee experience. And I think that's where we're going to have some fun today. So Megan has spent time with big companies like Sony, who you may have heard of. She was the head of innovation for the Research and Innovation Center, and she was the head of customer experience and marketing during a time when Sony as a company was really driving hard toward that retail customer experience. You saw a lot of that during kind of the early 2010s with Sony and Microsoft all trying to create these stores, sort of like another big company you may have heard of called Apple. I don't know if you know them or not. But Megan spent some time with Sony doing that work. She spent some time consulting with Deloitte. She's a certified coach. She's been a change management expert. She knows how to get the best out of people, and she's just, frankly, all around good people to talk to. And so with that, friends, let's welcome to the program Megan Ragsdale. Megan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. It is so great to be here with you.
So look, You've got a fascinating background, and like you got to do some pretty cool stuff. I left half of it out from when we talked previously, but what I want you to share with people is how in the world did you end up in the car wash world?
That is a great question. I definitely did not know that part of my career was going to wind up in the car washing business. But if you meet our CEO, Lauren Zatisha, you can see how quickly that would happen. I was just coming off an assignment with the North Face retail group. I was doing some coaching and consulting on high performance teams and culture. And a colleague of mine from Sony actually had been working with Soapy Joe's on putting some policies and procedures together and asked me to come along and meet Lauren's and the Soapy Joe's team. And probably in the first 30 seconds, I knew something bigger was happening here than just washing cars. I knew we were building a brand. I knew we had a meaning and a purpose to the work that we were doing. And I got hooked literally within the first 30 seconds.
Yeah, it turns out when you get around good car wash people, you don't stay away for very long. It's that
is so true. That is so true. And we've since built a great team. It's been 3 years. I came in to do some executive coaching and culture and people work and wound up staying. And now we are in such a rapid period of growth that it has just gotten more exciting every year I've been here.
Well, and what's fascinating too, right, is like with that growth, the people become even more important than they were to start with. And look, I'm a big proponent. People are always important. But when you're growing and building a bench and trying to resource and staff and operationalize everything as you go bigger and don't go home, that's really important. And I want to focus a little bit today on what you all are doing at Soapy Joe's and what you've kind of brought from that retail environment and that change management environment to help people set their businesses up for success. So let's start with something that everybody wants to know about. We've been talking a lot about finding people, right? Like, where can I find talent? You have an interesting perspective on this. Share where you might think to look for talent.
Well, there's an amazing pool of talented people in our female workforce right now, and especially coming off of COVID, where a quarter of the workforce, the female workforce, left. And 80% of the 1 million people who had to leave when school started in the fall as teleschool were women. So we've got a huge gap in our market right now. We have women who had to make some choices between what they need to do personally and what they need to do professionally. And that is the workforce that it's really critical for us to tap into, not only to rebuild our economy post-COVID, but I kind of feel like ignore hiring women at your own peril, Matt, because I think the data on having more women in your organization is really, really compelling. There's a link to financial performance. There's a link to stronger and better cultures, which retains better employees. And typically companies with more representation of women, outperform their competitors by quite a bit financially.
Yeah, there's no look. My wife keeps me impressed every single day with the perspective that she brings to the work that she does, and I get a chance to see that and be proud of her every day. And my daughters do the same thing. And you talk to a lot of car wash owners and operators out there who have kind of figured this out ahead of the curve and who have set their businesses up so that they are welcoming and good places for women to work, and they're reaping those benefits, and they will never go back. So let's get in a little bit to like, okay, I've got 25% of women here who left the workforce. They're going to come back. How do I attract them? Like, what does my company need to be like? And what is that environment like to bring them in and make them want to work at my business?
That's a great question, Matt. And I think a lot of the things we'll probably talk about today, people might think, well, this is a great environment for all employees, not just women. But I think I want to call attention to where there might be some nuances in some of these concepts that do mean something a little bit different to women. And for that, I want to bring you back to probably something that we all learned in our high school classes, which is really the Maslow hierarchy of needs, which is that inverted triangle that really talks about how you get to your potential as a human being. And the bottom two rungs are really about getting your physiological needs, so food, shelter, taken care of. And then right above that is safety. So I know it sounds really simple, but as an organization, if you want really high performing people, you've got to make those two bottom tiers not an issue for people. So pay a good salary, offer bonuses, be competitive when you can, give stretch assignments and development opportunities, and don't make safety an issue. So when I talk about safety, I'm really referring that to two types of safety. There is the physical safety aspect, which, we run our car washes late at night. We have reduced crews. The women on your team might have some different safety needs physically than maybe some of the other folks on your team, just something to think about. But the second type of safety that doesn't get talked a lot about is something that is called psychological safety, which was really made famous when Google decided to study right around 2012 what makes a great performing team. And the number one thing that this Project Aristotle surfaced about what really makes a great team is psychological safety. And what that means is that people feel like they can be themselves, they can make mistakes, they can be vulnerable in front of one another, which means that there has to be a really high degree of trust on your team. So I think being able to have those two things really well taken care of are one of the ways that you can attract more women to your organization.
You make me think about it. It's interesting timing because I'm reading a book by Adam Grant, who's with I
love him.
Yeah, he's written a lot of stuff, right? He's like the next big idea club. Think Again, yeah, absolutely. I'm like on page I don't know 40, right? But like this concept of rethinking things is totally appropriate in this context because you might think in your business that you've got it figured out and that your culture is welcoming and that there's no reason why you shouldn't be attractive to all walks of life, anybody who really wants a job. But in this book, there's like little stories that pop up and you're like, oh man, I guess I wasn't really paying attention. Like stuff like, did you guys know, and I'm going to this is really hurting me right now to share this story because I learned it and it makes me so sad because I've used this before, but there's a story about frogs, right? And how if you put them in a pool of boiling water, it's not going to work, right? You can just put them in lukewarm water and bring it to temperature, and you'll boil the frog, and everything will be great. They won't notice. It's false. It's 1,000% false. That frog is like a human being. If that hot tub is too uncomfortable, it's getting out. So that's one of those things. It's like, well, just because you accepted that to be true, you gotta question it a little bit, and you gotta question your own company and your own culture and what you're doing, and be constantly reevaluating and rethinking and looking and being open to things. So I think it's funny, all this conversation came up as I was starting to read this book, and so now here I am rethinking all the things I do.
Absolutely, I love that author. His book Originals is one of the best books that I've ever read, and if you're entrepreneurial in any way, I think that's an amazing book. And Matt, you're so right, because even though I am a woman, it doesn't mean that I know how to do everything perfectly, and I can't assume that I'm doing things perfectly at our company. And so I think what you have to do first and foremost, and this is something we've done at Soapy Joe's, is you have to be really intentional about wanting to change the dynamic of your workplace. And if you want to attract more women, you have to be intentional about it. You have to set a goal for it. We did that internally, and we were able to double the amount of women working in our offices, in our field, in our home office teams within under 3 years, and we're continuing to progress there. And I think what allowed us to be able to feel really comfortable attracting our female employees is because many times they come to us as customers, and we felt really good about the customer experience we were providing. We're respectful, we're safe, we're driven by a mission and a set of values that we work on here as a company. And values is really, what are those behaviors that we do when no one else is looking? And building community and leading with heart are two of our core values. And when we took a look at our culture, one of the fun questions that I used to ask companies as a consultant, and it's a really good way to get a pulse on your culture, is just to ask your employees, if you were to compare working here at our company to a known TV show or a movie, what would that be? And then you ask, what would you like it to be? And you're going to literally see things like we're here at Sons of Anarchy, and where we want to be is Modern Family. And that's just a really disarming way to get a pulse check from your team on kind of where you are and whether you're meeting their cultural expectations.
So, yeah, yes. Sons of Anarchy, fun show to watch. Not a place you want to work. It turns
Definitely
out.
not. Definitely not.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you got to watch your back. Okay, so I want to come back to something you were talking about a little bit earlier, which was this safety concept, right? And what it means to this goes along with this whole idea of rethinking, right? Like this, as males, let's be frank. Look, we like to mansplain. We're gonna do it. We're terrible at even realizing that we're doing it. It happens all the time. And there's also this thing we do where we're like, when we want, there's a female in the room, we want them to be one of the guys. Oh, she's one of the guys. That's great. She's in. Yeah. Because she's fitting in how we want her to fit in. This is great for her. But psychological safety is something completely different. Can you just kind of reiterate that for everybody?
It is. Psychological safety is really about having people be able to come together on a team and really be able to not fear any kind of retribution for speaking up, for communicating new ideas, for being able to share some concerns that person might have about the path that we're taking as a company, or the strategy, or if something's happening at a site, you want to be able to surface that issue without being looked at as a problem child. So really what it means as leaders to create psychological safety is you have to really be willing to listen in a different way to your employees. And you have to have really, really strong people leaders who can really enforce in a gracious way the policies and procedures that you've built as a company to really eradicate any kind of discriminatory behavior whatsoever. So as it pertains to women, some of those things, Matt, like you already mentioned, are things that have become really popular, like mansplaining. But where that term comes from can be a form of sexism that's a little bit harder to see on the surface. So blatant discrimination might be, maybe the female employees on your team are getting a little bit of unwanted attention from some customers or other team members. But then there's also this concept of being a little bit benevolent about it, where you may have women in your organization, but you don't have them in decision-making roles. You may have them in roles where they're required to do the caretaking of the company. And I think one of the most important things you can do to help really foster some psychological safety in an environment that attracts women is you've got to have women in the highest levels of leadership in your company. You've got to have women really well represented at all levels. There's a phrase called, if she can see it, she can be it. And that's a really important piece of bringing women into your organization when they know that it's possible for them to progress as high as they really want to in the organization and really be able to take on whatever role they should desire with the right skill set and the right development. So I think those are really key things that create that really fertile foundation for a psychologically safe environment.
Yeah, it's this idea we talk about a lot, which is, career pathing and being able for people to see that there's room for them to grow within your organization. And if you don't have people that you want to attract within your organization in those higher levels of leadership, guess who's not coming to work for you? Any of those people you're after. So that's a super important component. It's important for women, but important really across the board in terms of like, look, if you want to be a good place to work, you got to be a good place to work, and you got to represent the people you're trying to attract. I'm going to switch gears on you. Sorry. I'm going to switch a little bit here. So we were talking about psychological safety. And I think one of the things that came up in our conversation previous was this idea of mentorship, right? And people mentoring people who are most like them. And that's a really hard thing. It's back to this concept of rethink, right? Like, don't just spend time, if you're a male manager, don't spend time with the male employees who are most like you, and maybe they were similar to your growth path, or maybe they show a little bit of an inclination towards some mechanical component that you maybe thought was cool. Spend time mentoring everyone. And can you talk about what you guys do with Soapy Joe's to kind of do that?
Absolutely. I had a former mentor actually tell me a phrase that's really kept in my own mind in terms of being cognizant of where I'm spending my time. And he just said, hands and feet. That's how you know where an organization is spending time. So the hand piece of that is, where are you giving out reward and recognition? What are you giving it for? And the feet being, where are you traveling to spend your time, and who are you spending time with? So one of the most important things that you can do to develop anybody is to really provide great mentorship. And at Soapy Joe's, that's but one component of what we like to call our talent life cycle. So we actually approach talent really purposefully, because our mission here is to build an amazing leadership pipeline, whether people choose to stay with us or if they choose to leave us and contribute somewhere else. And the reason why we do that is because building community is a value for us. And if we are building amazing leaders and leadership skills, then when that person leaves us, they're able to continue contributing to the community. So it's worth it for us to invest the time and energy to do that. So we have a whole employee life cycle that we pay attention to. Most people maybe stop at the recruiting aspect and the exiting aspect. But what we do is we onboard our employees very much in the same vein that you would with a really new customer. We make sure that we immediately onboard them in a really meaningful way that makes that relationship really sticky with the organization. We want to know immediately what their career aspirations are, what their goals are. We like to assess their skills at their role level on a regular basis. So we have a cadence of conversations that happens multiple times over the course of the year. And they're not just limited to performance. That's where a lot of people fall short of really managing talent. So we're very intentional about having career conversations, which are really about that person's potential, their willingness to grow. What are the key workforce criteria and critical skills that we need as an organization? And then where are they on their own path, their own development plan to achieving that next level? And so we cycle through these career conversations, which is a great way to surface new talent, because people will surprise you constantly that they are very interested in leadership. And you might not know that if you didn't have a very intentional time set aside to just discuss that person's career. So we're able to really double down on our investment in that individual. We create customized training and development plans, and then we actually map our talent as an organization and where they are in their development and what is our succession plan for each one of these roles. Because not only do we want to keep people and keep them happy and engaged, but we also, as an organization, don't want to be in a situation where we were caught by surprise with somebody leaving, or that we didn't have a person who could backfill a role. So really, it's also to continue that great membership experience. It takes that friction out by turning over employees constantly. And I'm really proud of how we've been able to do that here.
Yeah, you're speaking my language. I'm all about journeys and life cycles, because that's what's at the core of every good story, right? Every good story is a journey and an adventure, and there's a guide, and you're like doing a thing. So, you just take those principles and apply them to business. And I think it I don't know, it makes things a little easier. It gives you a framework. I'm big on frameworks, it's like anything that can make decisions easier.
Yes, do all the quadrants in the framework and the four squares. I mean, Matt, what you're saying kind of is reminiscent of something that I remember at Deloitte. I took an entire year of my career just to focus on what career customization would look like. And this was an idea incubated at Deloitte that I really still think to this day is really brilliant. And kind of the premise is that everybody's career looks like a bit of a sine wave. There's peaks, then there's troughs, and different life components happen. Maybe you have some elder care. Maybe you move from individual contributor into a leadership role. And so almost like old stereo equalizer buttons, you have to kind of tune up, tune down certain areas. Companies have to be really agile and flexible with employees to be able to match that journey with them. Otherwise, you're going to churn people out of your organization before you want to and before they want to. And I think being able to respond to those things and really be ahead of them is the key to retaining a really great team.
Well, and the other thing that you touched on that I think is really valuable and that I don't think enough of us are doing is this concept of separating separating the conversation from performance and just career path or career goals, however you want to frame that up. It's not different from if you volunteer on a board or if you're engaged in some activity. There's like the high level work, right, that you want to talk about that's like strategic, and then there's all the like operational management down in the weeds stuff that you have to do. You can't have those conversations at the same time because those are different parts of your brain. So I think being really intentional around splitting that out is, one, going to help everybody in that conversation. It's going to go a lot better. But two, I think it's really important to expose our employees and our people to those kinds of conversations, because that's stuff that, frankly, people coming into the industry at maybe a lower level have probably not been exposed to and don't even know exists and don't even know that there's a level of belief in you and interest in you and someone who's out there wanting to help develop you that can really take that employee from someone who was maybe going to churn in a few months because they weren't getting attention to somebody who will be with you for 20, 30 years. It's powerful.
It is incredibly powerful. And you'd be surprised how many people are at advanced career levels and have never really had a career conversation. And I think what's wrapped up in that, and I am on my soapbox about the need to be really great at having meaningful conversations with people, really intentional, because you know what it's like, Matt. When you wrap up a performance conversation with a couple of positive things, people are kind of waiting. It's a kiss and a kick. You know, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and you can't really intake the investment and interest in you because it's kind of girded around, you know, we're focused on what's good for the organization. The goal of the career conversation is really to be all about that individual. You are that person's cheerleader, and you're really in his or her corner in that moment. And you're so right. It really builds the confidence for people to move into these roles. The fact that, you know, some of these folks really are first time or early career folks, and to have, you know, the backing of your leadership team to really be behind you in your development. One of the things that we do in our talent lifecycle that really kind of reinforces that is a program called Magic Moments. And this is something that's really taken off internally in a great way. And I love reading these stories. They're really kind of how I love to end my day. And it's a peer-driven recognition program where anybody in the organization can shout out anybody else. And it has just taken off like wildfire. And it just creates this continuous loop of confidence building. And if you get those little, moments of decisions made and you feel confident in your decision making, which we spend a lot of time talking to our employees about, then you can take bigger and bolder risks as your career continues to unfold because you have the confidence of your track record at that point. So I think all of that is really wrapped up into how you invest in people and how you make them feel like you're willing to spend the time and the energy on making them feel really good inside of your organization. And that is just the best thing you can do for retention.
Well, and it goes to really, I'm on this rethinking thing and I can't help myself, but it goes to rethinking what it's like to run a business, to create an organization, to value your people. And I know that, again, you and I had talked previously about, the origins of the ladder, right? Climbing the corporate ladder, and how that doesn't really work anymore. And it's a different environment and different people and different generations doing this work. And with that comes different expectations. And I think that this component of being able to know that the people that you're working with and working for believe in you is really, really important. I think we all need to keep that kind of in the back of our mind. I mean, honestly, keep it in the front of your mind, but at least keep it back here so it can drive some decisions every once in a while.
It is. And I think, Matt, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
You say, I think what it does too, and this is where, and if you want to have a book club on Think Again,
yeah,
I will be there with you to geek out on all those concepts. But one of the things that we look at too, and because I'm a certified mindfulness teacher, we try and weave some of these components into our learning and our training as well, so that we're building up skills of resiliency and we're able to help people overcome fear. And I think there's a model of fear that I love. It's called the SCARF model. And really it's about taking away some of these kind of triggering neurological blocks when you're in a moment and you have some sort of a question about certainty. and uncertainty about what my career path looks like, which is much more like a lattice than it is a ladder, or if you're jungle gym, where you have to traverse back and forth. Sometimes you're in a career landing position. Sometimes you have to acquire more skills and experiences before you can move on. And we like to remove the uncertainty from knowing where I can go in the company by really making it very specific what competencies, skills, and behaviors are required at every role level, and what does good look like in each of those roles, so that people don't have to wonder, how do I get from assistant manager to site manager to DM? We've laid it out for them, and their career conversations and development conversations are what help build their own customized plan to get on that track. And I think that helps us answer some of the fears that people may have when they're really thinking about what they want to do and how do they get there. And we try and take away as much mystery around that as possible.
Yeah, that customized plan is key. That's the key. Make the people feel valuable and make it personalized to them. It's like what you do with customers, right? Like you want the customers to feel valued and personal. You want to use their names when you know it. If not, maybe use their vehicle. Hey, Ford F-150, good to see you again. All right. So let's back up a little bit here to something that I want to make sure that we kind of wrap up nicely for everyone. If they're only going to take away a few things, I want them to at least take away this last piece. Can you give us maybe 5 things that I could do today, or 2 things, or 10, however many things that I can do today to make sure that my business is set up to stand out, right? And to be welcoming and to be a great place for women to work, really for a great place for everybody to work.
I mean, let's talk about all the things, Matt. There are so many things.
We'll be here for a while.
There's so many things that you really can do today that are not big lifts for you to do, but would make really valuable leaps. And I think going back to the number one thing is intentionality. You really have to be intentional about wanting to grow the diversity on your team. And again, it will pay it forward for you, not only in your culture, but in your financial performance. So part of being intentional about setting that goal means that there's a lot that you can do in the recruiting part of your talent life cycle. And I think some of the things that are important to remember is that sometimes women only apply for jobs when they believe that they're 100% qualified for them. So as a company, you have to be really good at pushing yourself to get a broader candidate pool. You have to be accepting of candidates that come from non-traditional backgrounds that may not look exactly like the experience that you have listed in your job description. Speaking of job descriptions, use as much neutral language as possible. There's a lot that you can do around really kind of sorting through your resume stack, taking names off of your resumes, just to kind of eliminate any unconscious biases in your review of resumes. So I would say intentionality and really pushing yourself to recruit and cast a wider net are 2 things. The third thing I would say is really do assess your culture. If you're not already doing an employee satisfaction survey, please start today. You can do a super simple free one on SurveyMonkey, and that'll give you a really good baseline of how well you're meeting the needs of your employees. And if you're meeting the needs for most people, you will be much more able to attract a better candidate. Some of those things that are going to be important are flexibility, really good policies and strong procedures around really kind of eradicating any kind of discriminatory behavior in your culture. I would also say really rethinking, even though we are hourly and there are kind of strict hours of operation we need to operate, when you can be flexible with people, do. Because if you make that such a requirement, you're going to miss out on some amazing candidates that may just have a flexibility issue at this moment. It doesn't mean that it is forever. And I think that's going to be a big key in bringing women back to work. And I also think, lastly, the thing that you can be doing always is really training your organization in how to be a more inclusive culture. There are some incredible classes on nonviolent communication, on crucial conversations, all kinds of topics that would really benefit your organization, and really understanding how to be able to be an environment where all people feel welcome and psychologically safe. So those would be my top 5 things.
Those are good ones. There's a lot there to do. I'm going to add one. Don't be afraid to bring in someone else to help you with your assessment, because as human beings, we are notoriously awful at self-evaluating and being self-aware. Even the most like amazing self-aware gurus among us will miss it, right? So don't be afraid to have a little help, get a little outside perspective to do all of these things. I think it's really helpful and humbling, honestly.
Matt, I love that, because as a former culture consultant, I can tell you that, and I'm in that situation myself sometimes. When you're in the jar, it's hard to see the label. And you're right, having the benefit of a third party who isn't emotionally attached to your organization can really be a great eye opener for people. So that was an awesome ad. I'm glad you said that.
Megan, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I think that there's a lot in here for folks to unpack. I think we've all got a lot of rethinking to do, but I think at the end of the day, what you all are doing at Soapy Joe is with the way that you're being very intentional in how you develop your people, how you attract your people, and how you make them feel really valuable every single day is super amazing. And the culmination of all those things, I think, deserves your recognition. So kudos to you guys.
Thank you so much, Matt. We've got a really great team. Thanks again. It was great to be here.
Hey, so Tom, I see your question. I missed it. I'm sorry about that. I will connect you with Megan, and we will get that question answered for you about which questions have the most impact on that survey. Look, if you all are watching at home and you want to get more stories like this, you want more inspiration, more great ideas for your business, you know where to go. That's carwashmagazine.com, and you can watch all of our previous episodes. You can also subscribe to Car Wash the Podcast anywhere you're consuming that podcast content. And as always, friends, there's a couple things you have to do this week. Number one, you have to register for the Car Wash Show, because I want to see you all there. I want to see this community come together en masse in Las Vegas in November. So I want to see you guys there. I want to see everybody there. Make sure you get registered. Registration is open. Housing is going to fill up. You got to watch out. So here's the deal. The other thing that you have to do this week that I say every week, when you're out there and you're washing cars and you're just killing it, you got to keep it clean.
I'm just having a good day, having a good